All righty. Hi.
Hi.
Would you mind telling us your name, if your van has a name? We'd love to know. And what you would say are the main types of adventures that you use your van for.
Uh-huh. Okay. My name is Amy, and I did not name my van, even though I have lots of friends who name their vans, but I never did. So I never got that creative with it. And I do like to go camping a lot. So I use this basically late spring all through late fall to go camping kind of anywhere. Um, And I'll also use this van in the winter when there's a lot of snow because it just handles really well. And I have an electric car, and sometimes I don't trust that car as much in the snow. So I'll use the van for that or to load up skis. I get more use out of it than I thought I would. I'll put it that way.
Awesome. I love that. And what about your companions? Are you doing a lot of your adventuring on your own? Are there specific people or furry friends that are coming along?
I do a little bit of both. So I sometimes will go camping in really, really large groups where people have vans, RVs, or tents. And I have gone out on my own a few times too, which has been really nice and really peaceful. And I do have a small dog. He's about 25 pounds and he comes with me. Um, and I mean, he's small enough, he even sleeps in the bed with me. And then my son also, he'll come and sometimes he pitches a tent and sometimes he puts a camping pad on the floor and we'll just crash out on the floor.
Nice. That's great. Um, so, in terms of like the layout of your van or the design aspect of the van, what stood out for you about perhaps the Vansmith designs when you first saw them?
Uh-huh. Okay. So I would say the main thing that stood out to me was the simplicity, but the quality of the craftsmanship. And it was the combination of those two things that really, really caught my eye. It's like beautiful work, but it's just simple, right? And that was what I wanted. I didn't want anything too complicated.
Nice. So, when you were designing your own van, had you already seen a design that had inspired you, or were was there anything you wanted to change or specifically tailor for you?
Yes. So I had been on the Vansmith website, and I don't know how many van builds I had sent in, but I had really played around quite a bit online with what I wanted. And then I knew I wanted it to be as spacious as possible. And so part of my draw for the design build was that sense of spaciousness. And I went to an RV show. I saw at the time the owner's van was at the RV show, and I really liked it. And this build is similar to that. So after sitting in his van at the show and kind of feeling it out and laying in the bed, I was like, yeah, this is the build I want.
Nice. So now that you have this layout, does this layout feel like home to you? Does it feel cozy? Does it feel comfortable? Does it work well?
Yeah, it is really cozy in here. And one thing I'll say, which I didn't answer before, the one thing I did change was I went with the recommended mattress, but the recommended height was, I think, 6 inches, and I went with 8 because, and I knew it was going to come up a tiny bit over the windows, and I still did it because I thought, you know what, if I'm putting money into this van, I want it to be as comfortable as possible, and I have no regrets because this bed is so cozy and I love sleeping in it. So wait, what was the question?
I love that answer. I was just saying, does this layout work for you now that you've
Oh
done
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
design process and you're actually living in it?
Yeah, yeah, it does work for me. I like it a lot. There's a few choices I made that I'm really, really happy about. And one was to have just a solid countertop and not have a cooktop like inlaid. So I have an induction that I just pull out of a drawer and plug in. But when I don't need it, I have the whole counter space available to me. And I also, again, the simplicity and the clean line. And it's just like this nice bamboo countertop. And I also feel like then, um, if if say that induction were to break, I mean, I bought that off Amazon. It's just super easy to replace. Vansmith has been so good to me. They have answered my questions, big and small. They've been incredibly helpful, and I have called upon them many, many times during the first year of having this van. And it was also one of the selling points for the company is their customer service and how warm and friendly and kind they are, especially coming in as someone who didn't know anything about vans. They really kind of held my hand and walked me through it in a great way.
That's great to hear. You mentioned a little bit about quality earlier, that you stepped into a van at a show and maybe even from the website you could tell a little bit. Was there something when you saw your van, this van for the first time, that gave you the sense that this was a quality build, or many things? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, visually, I love what I chose in
I
terms
do too.
of like, thank you, the colors and then the bamboo with some walnut. I really love all of that. And as a side note, I have a couple of friends. I have this one male friend who owns a woodworking business, and he does all the high end cabinetry all over Boulder. And when he saw the van, he was like, "You've got to be kidding me, Amy." And I was like, "What?" He's like, "This is so nice." He's like, "This is your camper van?" I was like, "Yeah, this is my camper van." So I got compliments from him and from other friends I know that are building their own vans. They will sometimes ask to come over and look at my van because they know the quality of the craftsmanship is so good and the materials. So they'll come and just say, "Can I take one more look so I can see before I start building that part of my van?"
That's
Sweet.
pretty cool. Um, what about, speaking of materials, like sustainability? Was that something you cared about? Was that something that went into any of your choices?
Yes, it is something I do care about. I guess where that showed up was the solar panels. I knew I wanted a van that had solar panels. And then I think the bamboo
Yeah.
really speaks to that too. I really, really love the bamboo. And then, you know,
And you have wool in the walls, insulation behind.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. I forgot about that part. Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's wool in there, which also makes it like cozy and warm. Um, it was something actually when I first was looking, poking around online at vans, not at Vansmith, but I saw this one van that had this super cool like wood paneling. And I remember talking to Vansmith about it, and they were like, "Look, it's great. It's just not going to be as warm, and it'll be a little more tin can like." And so I took their advice. And then when I took the van out for the first time, it was pretty cold at night. And I was so warm and cozy in here. And I was really happy I chose fabric on the walls with the wool in there.
Nice. Was there anything that you specifically wanted that was like any requirement, like specifically for you, that maybe wasn't like a standard thing that mattered to you?
I think the only thing was the thicker mattress. Other than that, I don't think I tweaked anything actually. I'm trying to think right now. I think it was
Okay.
really just a thicker mattress.
Nice. Okay.
Mm.
Sounds like you were an easy customer.
I hope so.
um, anything else about like the process, about how it was like along the way, once you had kind of decided that, you know, you found these people trustworthy and you liked the product that you saw, how did the rest of the process unfold?
Honestly, it went pretty quickly. As soon as I had the van, and Vansmith also walked me through, I kept sending them specs. What about this van? What about this van? They helped me pick which one. Um, and once I had that and actually had the van like in my driveway, then the build window was set and I came into Vansmith and we went through all of the options and just talked through everything, which was super helpful. And I had, um, I had materials to look at, to choose in terms of like, just color or choices for, like I said, the bamboo and the walnut. But things went pretty smoothly. And I think it took maybe, I want to say about 3 months from that point until I had my van, which was, I thought, amazing.
Great. Okay. And you said that they've still been there for you as you've been using the van, and you know people still pick up the phone.
Yeah, definitely. Or like the first time I needed to winterize it, I was a little bit, um, I guess, shy about putting antifreeze in. And I called and they were like, oh, just come over. We'll walk you through it. No big deal. And I really appreciated that. And then when it was time to flush it out, I called and I was like, just run the water through, right? And I've always appreciated how much they're willing to help, and they make it really like not a big deal. They're like, just come on over.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Neat. Is there anything else that you'd want to share with a person who is considering a van build, or you know, having a van in their lives? Because obviously, it's a big decision and it's a big investment. And um, you said you've used it more than you even thought. Do you think that's specific to you, um, or do you think it's kind of easier?
Mm,
I don't know.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny. That was something that was one of my biggest questions before I bought was, will I use it enough? And at the time, I was like, well, if I only go out in it like 5 times a year, is that really worth it? And I put that question to Vansmith, and one of the first things they said back to me was, you'll use it more than you think. And that has been so true, like 100% true. In fact, I find myself looking for reasons to use it. So I would say to someone who is considering, if you're seriously considering, I would say go for it. I have had zero regrets. I love the freedom it gives me, that like, especially as a single female, I can pick up and go, and I feel safer in here than I would in a tent. And I would really go anywhere in it. It's sturdy and reliable and comfortable, and I'm warm if it's cold at night. And I have loved everything about it. I'm a big fan of this van, and I would say if you're seriously considering, just go for it. You won't regret it.
That's cool. Any other like practical tips? A lot of people ask about insurance or registration or like parking, driving. Have you found driving it difficult at all, or parking it difficult? Was the insurance process like? Was there any tips on any of those things?
Yeah, I mean, it drives surprisingly like a car for the short wheelbase. And that really surprised me. And parking has not been an issue. I will say that high wind, you've got to be mindful and really check how big the gusts are and reroute, which I've had to do. And it's been fine, but it's just something that I'm aware of. Um, and then, yeah, I just went through my insurance company and gave them all the details, and they just tacked it on. So that was really like not that big of a deal. Um, I think that's it, right?
Great.
Was that all the questions? Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
Anything else? Well, I think it's clear how much I love it. So maybe that says everything it needs to say.
Thanks. All right.